Wisconsin, a state known for its peaceful communities, rolling farmlands, and tight-knit neighborhoods. But today, this serene backdrop serves as the site of an unthinkable tragedy. A tragedy that has left families shattered, a town reeling, and a nation grappling with difficult questions. On what seemed like a normal day, one high school became the scene of a horrifying act. A 15-year-old student walked into this very building and changed the lives of countless people forever. This is the story of heartbreak, unanswered questions, and a desperate search for understanding. As authorities scrambled to secure the area, the world's eyes turned to this quiet Wisconsin town. But as the hours turned into days, a haunting question began to emerge. What could drive a child, just 15 years old, to commit such a devastating act? In the next minutes, we'll unravel the tragic events of that day, explore the shooter's life and possible motives, and examine the impact this act has had on the community. But more importantly, we'll attempt to answer the question everyone is asking. Why? It began like any other school day in this Wisconsin town. Students arrived, their backpacks slung over their shoulders, greeting friends and teachers as they settled in for the morning's lessons. No one could have predicted the horror that would unfold. At 8:15 a.m., a loud bang echoed through the hallways, sending shockwaves through the building. What followed was chaos, a scene of confusion and terror as students and teachers scrambled to find safety. For many, it was unclear if this was a drill, an accident, or something far worse. The reality soon became clear. A 15-year-old sophomore, armed with a handgun, had entered the school with a deadly purpose. Shots were fired indiscriminately, leaving several injured and claiming the lives of two students before authorities arrived on the scene. Two bright young lives were lost that day, lives full of potential, dreams, and aspirations. Their families would never be the same, and for the students who survived, the scars, both visible and invisible, would last a lifetime. This is a tragedy that no community should ever have to endure. Our hearts go out to the victims' families, and we are committed to supporting everyone affected as we try to piece together what led to this act. But as the initial shock began to fade, a darker, more complex question began to emerge. Who was this 15-year-old shooter, and what could have driven them to carry out such a horrific act? The shooter, just 15 years old, was someone who, on the surface, seemed like any other teenager. Friends, family, and teachers described them as quiet, reserved, and in some cases even polite. But beneath this seemingly ordinary exterior lay a troubled individual grappling with deeper issues. Born and raised in this very community, the shooter was described as a shy child who often kept to themselves. Teachers recall a student who rarely caused trouble, but whose lack of engagement in class raised concerns. A few classmates spoke of bullying, isolation, and struggles to fit in. In the weeks leading up to the tragedy, there were signs, troubling signs that hinted at a growing storm. Social media posts alluding to violence, dark and graphic drawings in notebooks, and increasingly erratic behavior at school. Some posts hinted at feelings of despair and anger, while others included cryptic messages that, in hindsight, seemed like cries for help. During a search of the shooter's home, investigators uncovered journals, videos, and online interactions that painted a disturbing picture. One of a teenager consumed by anger and hopelessness, feeling unheard and invisible in their daily life. The weapon, a handgun, was discovered to have been obtained from within the shooter's home, raising questions about gun safety and accessibility. How could a 15-year-old gain access to such a deadly tool so easily? And why weren't the warning signs taken seriously? The shooter's story is a complex one, filled with questions that may never be fully answered. But what's clear is that this was not an isolated incident. The combination of untreated mental health struggles, social isolation, and access to deadly weapons created a perfect storm, one that this small Wisconsin community will never forget. As investigators pieced together the events leading up to the tragedy, one haunting question lingered. Why? What could have driven a 15-year-old to commit such a devastating act? The search for a motive revealed a web of complex and troubling factors. The shooter's journals, recovered from their home, painted a picture of a young person grappling with profound feelings of alienation. Phrases like, "No one understands me," and "they'll regret how they treated me," appeared frequently, alongside graphic illustrations of violence. Social media also played a significant role. Investigators uncovered posts and private messages that hinted at the shooter's growing anger and fascination with violent imagery. Some messages revealed an admiration for other infamous perpetrators, suggesting a dangerous spiral into a world that glorified violence. For some, the motive may have stemmed from bullying. Several classmates admitted to witnessing or even participating in the shooter's ostracization. The shooter's perceived isolation may have fueled feelings of resentment, magnified by their mental health struggles. For the families and community, the search for answers has led to a broader conversation about prevention. Was this tragedy the result of systemic failures? Could it have been avoided if the warning signs had been taken seriously?
We need to do better for our kids, for our schools. If we see someone struggling, we can't just look away. This could have been prevented.
While the precise motive may never be fully understood, what is clear is that this was not an isolated act of violence. It was the culmination of many factors: mental health, isolation, and access to deadly means. And the question now is, how do we ensure this never happens again? In the days following the tragedy, the town found itself at the center of national attention. But amidst the media frenzy and calls for change, the community's focus remained on mourning the victims and supporting those left behind. Candlelight vigils brought together families, friends, and strangers, united in their grief. The victims were remembered not for the way their lives ended, but for the joy and light they brought to those around them. The school itself became a site of remembrance. Students returned to collect belongings, but for many, walking the hallways was a painful reminder of what had been lost. While the grieving continued, the community also sought answers. At a packed town hall meeting, residents voiced their concerns about school safety, mental health resources, and gun control. Meanwhile, the legal process began. The 15-year-old shooter was taken into custody without incident, and their trial became a focal point of debate. Should a minor be tried as an adult for such a heinous act? And what role should the shooter's mental health struggles play in their sentencing? This is a difficult case. On one hand, the crime is severe and demands accountability. On the other, we're dealing with a juvenile whose actions may stem from factors outside their full understanding or control. For the victims' families, the courtroom offers little solace. No sentence can undo their loss. And for the town, the scars left by this tragedy will take years to heal. In the wake of the tragedy, efforts to rebuild have begun. Schools in the area are implementing new safety measures, increasing mental health support, and starting programs to foster inclusivity among students. We want every student to feel seen, heard, and supported. If this tragedy has taught us anything, it's that we can't afford to ignore the signs. Amid the sorrow, glimmers of hope have emerged. Students have come together to create a mural in memory of the victims, a symbol of resilience and a commitment to moving forward. The aftermath of this tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the work that remains: to protect our children, to provide help to those in need, and to ensure that no other community has to endure such heartbreak. As the sun sets on this small Wisconsin town, the weight of what was lost remains palpable. This tragedy has left behind a community forever changed, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of addressing the issues that can lead to such heartbreak. But in the face of unimaginable loss, the resilience of this town shines through. Conversations have started, difficult, painful, but necessary conversations about mental health, bullying, gun safety, and the systems that need to change to protect our youth. We can't undo what happened, but we can honor the memory of those we lost by working to ensure this never happens again. Healing will take time, but we will move forward together. As we remember the lives lost, we must also remember the lessons learned. No student should feel invisible, no warning sign should go ignored, and no weapon should be so easily accessible to someone so young. This story, though tragic, is not just about loss. It's about the need for action, compassion, and vigilance. It's a call to every parent, teacher, friend, and policymaker to listen, to care, and to act before it's too late. If you or someone you know is struggling, resources are available. Together, we can make a difference. In memory of the lives lost and forever cherished.